Martha's choice. The first rays of morning sunlight streamed weakly through the cracks of the old wooden shutters, casting crooked golden lines across Martha's pale face. She sat huddled by the edge of the marketplace, her torn shawl wrapped tightly around her thin shoulders. The chill of hunger gnawed at her stomach, sharper than the cold wind that whipped across the cobblestone street. For days, she had survived on scraps. But this morning, the sweet, warm smell of bread from the baker's stall was too much to bear. Her trembling fingers slipped into the basket when no one was looking. Just one loaf, just one. But the baker's sharp eyes caught her. "Thief!" he shouted, lunging forward. Martha froze, her breath caught in her throat. Fear and shame crashed over her at once. She clutched the loaf, already imagining the cruel punishment that would follow. And then, a calm but commanding voice broke through the chaos. "That's enough." The crowd parted slightly as Henry appeared. A tall man in a finely cut coat, his dark eyes fixed on Martha. But unlike the baker's, his gaze carried no rage. Only something Martha could not quite name. Pity? Or was it curiosity? "She's no thief," Henry said softly, though the loaf was still in Martha's hands. "She's just hungry." The baker sputtered. "But sir, she..." "I'll pay for it." Henry handed over coins, more than enough for the bread. Then, turning to Martha, he added, "Come, share the meal with me." Her knees shook as she followed him, part in fear, part in disbelief. Never before had anyone spoken to her with such dignity. A new life. Henry's house was larger than anything Martha had ever seen. Chandeliers gleamed in the entryway, and portraits of stern ancestors looked down from the walls. She felt like an intruder, her muddy shoes sinking into carpets more valuable than anything she'd ever owned. But Henry was patient. He spoke gently, asking her name, her story. Though she told little, ashamed of her past, Henry offered her something she never expected: work. "You'll find no peace in the streets," he said. "But here, you can be safe. If you wish it." For the first time in years, Martha slept that night with a full stomach and under a roof that didn't leak. Hope stirred within her, fragile but real. Days turned into weeks. She worked as a maid, scrubbing floors, polishing silver. Yet unlike other employers she had known, Henry treated her with respect. Sometimes, in the quiet of the evening, he would find her in the kitchen and ask her thoughts about books he was reading or matters of the town. At first, Martha stumbled, afraid to sound foolish, but Henry listened as though her words mattered. Slowly, she began to believe they did. The shadow of the past. One evening, while carrying laundry to the garden, Martha froze. Across the iron gate stood a figure she knew all too well. Ben. Her chest tightened. Memories rushed back. The nights of shouting, the cruel grip of his hands, the threats that had driven her to flee. She had thought him gone forever. But now his smirk was there, the same, chilling as always. "Martha," he called softly, almost mockingly. "Did you think you could hide?" Fear rooted her feet to the ground. She dropped the basket, linen spilling over the gravel. That night, she locked herself in her small attic room, trembling at every creak of the house. She told no one, not even Henry. After all, what would he think if he knew the truth about her past? That she was not just a poor girl but a girl broken, chaste, and shamed. Still, Ben's shadow lingered, haunting her every step. The fiancée. It was during these restless days that Martha first met Lily. Elegant, with golden curls pinned in place and a smile polished like silver, Lily was Henry's fiancée. She floated into the house like she owned it, though her eyes often swept over Martha as if she were a stain on the wallpaper. "Oh, Henry," Lily cooed one afternoon, her hand resting possessively on his arm. "Your generosity is admirable, but really, must you keep strays?" Her gaze flicked toward Martha, who stood frozen with a tray in her hands. Henry's jaw tightened. "Martha works here. She is part of this household." Lily's smile faltered for a heartbeat, but she quickly recovered, pressing closer to Henry. Martha lowered her eyes, but she couldn't ignore the pang in her chest. Not jealousy, no, she would never dream of such a thing, but something else. A realization that Henry, with all his kindness, was bound to a woman who cared more for appearances than for hearts. Lines blurring. As weeks passed, Henry seemed to seek Martha's company more often. At first, she thought it coincidence. But then there were evenings when he lingered in the kitchen while she worked, asking about her day. There were mornings when he paused on the stairway just to exchange a word. One night, he found her crying quietly after a dream of Ben's cruel voice. She tried to hide her tears, but Henry knelt beside her, his hand warm on hers. "You don't have to carry it alone," he whispered. Something in his tone unraveled the walls she had built around herself. She wanted to trust him, wanted to believe she was more than her scars. But Lily noticed, and with every glance, every forced smile, her suspicion grew sharper. The wedding approaches. Preparations filled the house, flowers delivered, gowns fitted, guests invited. Henry was to marry Lily within weeks. Yet beneath the glitter of arrangements, doubt simmered. Martha saw it in Henry's eyes when Lily spoke of riches and social status. She heard it in his hesitant laughter. She felt it when, during one rehearsal, his vows faltered, his gaze drifting unconsciously toward Martha. On the eve of the wedding, Martha made her decision. She would not remain silent. Breaking the illusion. The church was filled with music, the smell of roses thick in the air. Lily stood radiant at the altar, her smile triumphant. Henry, though dressed in his finest, looked pale, uncertain. When the priest asked if anyone had reason the marriage should not proceed, Martha's voice rang out, trembling but firm. "This cannot be." Gasps echoed through the hall. Martha stepped forward, her heart pounding. "You seek a fairy tale, Henry, but it is not real. She does not love you for who you are, only for what you have. And her voice broke, but she steadied herself. "I cannot watch you walk into a lie." Lily's eyes blazed with fury. Henry's face softened, as though a weight he had long carried finally fell away. Chaos followed, shouts, accusations, even the arrival of police when Ben appeared, attempting to drag Martha away. But Henry stood beside her, shielding her, his voice steady as he ordered Ben removed. In that moment, truth shattered illusion. Freedom. The wedding was cancelled. Guests whispered, gossip spread, but Martha no longer cared. In the quiet that followed, Henry asked her what future she wished. He would have chosen her, she knew, but she saw the risk in his eyes too. The pull of society, the burden of scandal. And Martha realized something. Her life was not a debt to be repaid, nor a fairy tale to be written by others. "I choose freedom," she said softly. "Not chains of the past, nor cages of wealth. I must walk my own path." Henry's eyes glistened with respect, not regret. He took her hand gently, pressing it once before letting go. Martha left the grand house the next morning, her shawl still patched and thin, but her heart stronger than ever. She carried no bread this time, only the courage of her own choice. And for the first time, she felt truly alive.